Hello everyone and welcome to the channel. I'm Emmanuel, I'm an airline pilot, and today I'm honored to have a very first look at the Black Square TBM850. So the TBM850 is Black Square's second full aircraft for Microsoft Flight Simulator, the first one being released a long while ago. I don't even recall its name, but it was followed by their steam gauge overhaul series, which were my absolute favorite general aviation aircraft until A2A released, and now they rank just up with A2A. So, it is also Black Square's most technically advanced aircraft yet, focusing on primary instrumentation, radio navigation equipment and electrical systems, and all the equipment featured in the aircraft is based on real-world units and designed to meet the requirements of the most serious simmers flying IFR, or those looking for a real challenge, including 100 system failures. Now this is going to be a little bit of a longer video because there is so much to explore. As I just said, it is the second full aircraft Black Square have done. You will remember that the previous steam gauge overhaul series was based on default Microsoft Flight Simulator aircraft. Now with the TBM that is no longer the case. The only thing that has been reused is part of the sounds of the default TBM930. And apart from that, everything is new, including the external model. For that reason, how about we start with a walkaround, and as you can see, there is one big difference there already, which is the doors that you can operate in this airplane. So let's just about go up front and have a little bit more detailed look into the external model. I'm going to start with a couple of the details that we can see down here next to the doors airframe. If you have a look at that, that is quite impressive with all the little placards and everything. Apart from that, let's move out a little bit further, have a look at the wing, and particularly I want to have a look at the landing gear down here, seeing the level of detail to which this is done. Now this is all not developed by Microsoft, this is not taken over, but this is indeed all done by Black Square themselves now. Okay, so moving on from the landing gear, we've got the flap fairings that we can have a little look at up here. Now, you will be a little bit surprised possibly that you don't see too much over here, and indeed the level of detail on an airplane like this can be very good, while at the same time it looks rather simplistic. Now the reason for that is that in real life they try to make those wings and the fuselages with as little features on them as possible. So you can see that, for example, we only got a couple of screws over here on the panels that you can open. We've got the tie down and we've got the pitot tube up here, but apart from that there is basically no screws or anything on that wing, and that is because it keeps the wing as laminar as possible, and therefore we have a reduced drag. What we do see on the top of the wing here, however, is a wingtip fence, indicating that they do have some problems with the aerodynamics on the airplane, and that is usually when you would install a wingtip fence. Talking about aerodynamic problems of the airframe, if we have a very quick look to the tail, you will see the ventral fins we have down here as well, which are an aerodynamic feature to prevent spins and to make the airplane more stable. So we can see that the airframe is, well, quite optimized, to call it like that. You will recognize that other high performance aircraft, like for example the Learjets, do tend to have ventral fins as well. Apart from that, if we move up front over here, let's have a very quick look into the leading edges, into the landing light that we can see up here. That's the weather radar pod, and then we can move a little bit further forward and we get to the flight deck door and the extendable ladder that we have down here for the pilot to step in. Next to that is the forward cargo compartment, and you will see we've got a tow bar in here, we've got some fuses and bulbs that we can replace on the go, and a little bit of cargo space there as well. Okay then, from here on we've got the engine compartment. Now in this version of the airplane, Black Square have actually simulated a visual model of the engine as well. So if we quickly head into the cockpit, and we'll find a quick click spot that we can use to open up the engine cowlings, and that is down here on the rudder pedal adjusters. One for each side, and you can see like that we can open up the cowling and have a look inside at the actual 3D model of the engine. Okay, From here on, let's move a little bit further forward and actually have a look down at the nose gear. Again, marvelous little model over here, looking really good. And that is this. Alright, so that's our nose wheel, and maybe a quick look into the wheel bay as well. You can see the actuators over here, and this is how they open and close the nose wheel bay, or the doors. So quite a good level of detail in there. Next up, let's have a very quick look at the propeller and the air inlet that we have in the front over here. Now, there is some nice level of detail in here, in that the inertial separator is simulated. Now, what that means, I'll show you in flight, because that's something that, to my knowledge, has not been done yet in Microsoft Flight Simulator. Quick look at the other side of the engine. Again, nice level of detail in here. Also nice to be able to check the brake fluid down here in the visual model. Okay then, let's move on. That's just another wing over here. Now this one up here is the stall warning, and that is actually quite a nifty device. It's quite easy actually. This little plate up here is flowing in the airflow, and when the angle of attack exceeds a certain value, then the force of the wind is strong enough to move this upwards. When this makes contact, it closes a little switch, and that switch then enables a circuit which plays the stall warning. Quite easy, isn't it? Alright then, we are familiar with this side of the plane. Then moving to the back, not all that much to see up here. Now that's our little ELT box up there, and then that's pretty much a look at this plane already. We've got some antennas up here. I believe this is the VOR, I might be mistaken. And that's pretty much it. Okay then. Why don't you follow me back inside, and we'll have another look at the inside model then. Starting up in the inside, I'm going to start this one in the back of the plane actually, so let's quickly move over there. And I'm going to start with the aft cabin door. So we've got a little button down here saying press to close the door. Now, before we can do that, you see, pressing on there, the button moves in, but nothing happens. Before we are able to do that, we need to retract the stairs, and when the stairs are up, we can press that one and it closes the cabin door. Now watch those locks over here. You can see they switch from red to green, indicating that the door is properly locked. Now if you want to open it again, you have to press to unlock over here at first, like that. Now they turn to red, and then you're able to open the door. And then extend the stairs again as you wish. Okay then, let's retract those stairs, close the door, and then I'll show you a little trick that might be easy to miss for many of you, and that is the cargo door. Now you'll see we've got the open cargo door up in the front over there, and we actually got that little door to the back, that little key to the baggage door up here. So if I click that, then the baggage door closes and locks. Okay, apart from that, this is what the aft part of the cabin looks like. The table is unfortunately not foldable in here. Maybe that's going to come with an update, I don't know. And the same goes for the window shades. At this moment they're not animated, but with a bit of luck that might come in the future. Okay, same for the emergency exit, we'll see. Okay then, let's move a little bit further forward to the front, into the cockpit really, as this is what makes the plane most interesting. First of all, let me close those engine cowlings. Just because I'm an Airbus pilot these days, it doesn't mean that I have to leave those cowlings open to fly away on takeoff. Alright, so this is the cockpit of the TBM850. Now, the 850 is a development from the TBM700, which was the first TBM aircraft, and the number in the airplane's designator basically indicates the horsepowers of the engine. Now, talking about horsepowers of the engine, the TBM700 and 850 actually share the same airframe, but the 850 has got what is called the 850 mode. Now that is located up here above the flap lever, and you can put that flap lever into the 850 position. And what that does is it basically increases the amount of power available to the airplane. Now, by its very design, you can tell already that the flaps must not be extended when the engine is put into the 850 mode. Now, when the engine is in 850 mode, it basically changes the torque limit from the propeller, or from the engine up here. By default, you've got a torque limit of 100, and that is 700 horsepower. And then when you put it into the 850 mode after takeoff, you can increase the power to 121.4. And that gives you a nice little additional kick in order to increase your airplane performance. Not allowed to be used for takeoff and landing, and for that reason they've designed it with the flap lever down here so that you cannot possibly use 850 mode while the flaps are extended for takeoff and landing. That's a neat little feature, if you ask me, and I'm going to show you how that works in action in a few moments. In the meantime, let's have a very quick look at the instrument panel up there. Now, as with all black square aircrafts, they focus on analog instrumentation. However, in the 850, they have implemented an electronic flight instrument system on the pilot side, not on the first officer side, as you can see. And I'm going to go into more details about that in a few moments as we start the airplane up. Apart from that, very nice levels of detail. I will aim to show you a couple of them in action, like the vertical speed indicator slightly swinging up and down when the engine is running, or the behavior of the needles, all of which is actually physically influenced on this airplane. So that makes it quite impressive. As with all black square aircraft, the avionics stack is hot swappable, so we've got the 750 up here, we can switch it to the 530 on the fly, or we can install a standard COM with the KNS80 RNAV computer. Now this is all stuff that you've seen on the Steam Gauge overall series. The same goes for COM2, which we can exchange as well, and like that we can change around our avionics to what we like. Today we're going to use the GTN 750 as that is my favorite piece of avionics. Also new in this one, if you have both the PMS50 and the GTN XI add-ons, then by clicking on the SD card up here you can change between the two units. Alright, so that is like all the differences that we have available for our avionics. Cool. So that concludes our very first tour around the cockpit. The last thing that I want to mention down here is the circuit breakers, which are actually all simulated. Now, talking about all simulated, Black Square has included some of these white squares up there, and those are the circuit breakers that you can actually pull as a pilot, and which might have to be pulled as part of non-normal checklists. The other ones that you can see, like the fuel selector down here for example, are not meant to be pulled by the pilots. However, in the simulation you can still do it, and it is all going to have its associated effect. Now, that's the circuit breaker panel. All of them do work, and indeed the electrical system is one of the focuses of this airplane. Another focus that I just about want to mention here is the gyroscopes. So you can see that even though it has an electronic flight instrument, everything is still based on gyroscopes in here. And they are actually completely modeled with a physical simulation behind it, including gyroscopes precession. Now, precession might be a word that you might not be too used to. Indeed, when I read it for first in the manual, I thought like, oh, I've heard that word before, but I actually had to go back to my ATPL theory documents as well, just to look it up again, because it's been a while. Alright, apart from that, it does include a new voltage-based light dimming, and that is something that I can unfortunately only show you at night, so probably not on this flight, but it is quite impressive to see the brightness of the lights change with, you know, not only engine failures and stuff like that, but also when you engage the starter motor, for example, which puts a higher demand on the battery. Apart from that, the airplane is the first to feature advanced turbine engine failures, such as compressor stall and surging and fuel control failures. To my knowledge, this is the first time we see compressor stalls and compressor surges in any simulated aircraft. Also interesting to note here is the custom FOD damage based on the surface type on which you're taxiing. So looking outside today, we will mostly be on paved and improved surfaces over here, so that's not going to be too much of an issue. But the TBM is certified to fly onto grass strips as well, which is quite impressive for an airplane that can fly up to level 310 and do 311 knots true airspeed. Now, when you do fly on grass strips, you want that inertial separator to be on, because it does deflect not only ice falling off the propeller, again, a feature that is simulated, but also dirt being sucked into the air inlet, so you really have to handle that engine correctly. Okay then, so that is just a very general overview. There is a lot more to talk about with this airplane, but it's been 15 minutes already and we're still sitting in a cold and dark plane, so I do suppose that we are just about going to head into it now, close those doors and get it flying. Now, full checklists are included in the manual, which we are going to use today, but just as a quick note, the manufacturer of the TBM, well, used to be Socata, now it is Daher, has the real-world pilot's operating manual available on their website, which is like 1,200 pages that you can download for free. So that's just something to take into account. So we are standing up here at the Socata factory in southern France, where the aircraft are built, and from here we are going to take it out for a little maintenance test flight. At first we're going to do a quick 50 nautical miles trip. Let me show you that in the Navigraph charts, which, by the way, thank you very much for sponsoring to Navigraph. So down here we are going to leave Tarbes Airport towards a little airport called Mouret, south of Toulouse, where we are going to do a couple of touch and goes on a 1,000 meter runway, which is going to show you the performance capabilities of the plane. Then we'll fly back towards the factory and pick up an IFR on a touch and go towards Biarritz, where we are going to end today's flight. So that's our route. We are going to depart into southerly direction most likely, and then going to leave the control zone via Echo Alpha and Echo, climbing to like 3,500 feet, which is 2,500 above the ground. Now that is just about fine with all the airspaces over here. Now, flying in France is notoriously problematic, in my opinion, VFR, because there are just so many restricted areas. You can see here we've got 3,300 feet, then we've got luckily a little bit of Class Echo airspace till level 6.5, but then the controlled airspace of Toulouse is descending down on us already. So notoriously difficult to navigate down here in southern France, but we'll get it done. Okay, so that is our first plan. Quick look into where we actually are. We are sitting down here on the factory area, so we'll taxi out over here, then most likely down southbound via Mike, and then we'll go for either the intersection Charlie up here, or we proceed via Delta for full length runway 02. Alright, so that is our plan for the day. Let's hop back in, and we are going to get out our manual in order to start running the checklists. By the way, can really recommend you to actually run those checklists. In this video I will go over them a little bit quicker in like working speed, but I will do a separate tutorial for the aircraft where I'm going to tell you all of how to actually fly it. So we'll start up here with a crash lever going up, the source selector off, generator main, starter off, ignition off, gyro instruments all off, exterior lights are all off, circuit breakers all in again. Noticing a circuit breaker that's popped is quite easy by looking at that little red up there. Now you can make things a little bit easier for you as well. If you take up a view like this, and if any breaker is popped, it becomes very easy to see. So that's how you check a circuit breaker normally. Okay then, de-icing switches, they're located down here and they are all off. Landing gear control down, autopilot and trim master off, radio master off, bleed air off, air conditioning off. Dump switch is guarded, ram air handle pushed in. Okay, auto fuel selector, manual, fuel boost pump off. And then fuel tank selector on the left tank, ELT armed, that's the middle position, like that is what it would look like if you put it on, but we don't want to do that, so it's armed in the middle. Okay, parking brake set, manual override lever is off, power lever idle, propeller lever, we'll go max RPM, condition lever idle, flaps up, and then battery bus. We are going to supply that, or we are going to start from the battery today without external power. So let's go for it. Source selector onto battery, voltmeter is above 25, even though just above 25. This is like 25.5, but that's okay. Then exterior panel, exterior light panel tested. Then fuel gauges, quantity is checked, more than sufficient for what we want to do with it. Advisory panel, we're going to test both 1 and 2. Okay, oxygen annunciator is off. Now if you're looking for any of them, just put the test on and then you can see down here it says oxygen. So that's off. Okay, interior lights as required. Environmental panel, we'll do the light test. And then we'll take the flaps down and observe the flaps actually moving as they are supposed to. Light panel, test, de-ice panel, lights looking good as well. Then we are going to run the ProPeat test, so do note the 3 lights illuminated here, P21, P22 and stall heater. So we're going to turn those 2 on, and we can observe the systems operating. Okay, let's turn that back off. The de-icing light test is done, and with that we can select the source off again. The source up here basically is our battery, or external power as you want it. Okay, and that's our pre-flight checklist complete. We can now go ahead with the before start checklist. Pre-flight inspection complete, nose baggage door is closed, you could otherwise still see it up here. Engine compartment closed, cabin access door latched, pilot door is latched. Observe the green markings here, we did that in the back when we closed the door. So, parking brake is set, seats and seatbelts fastened, oxygen pressure, find that up here, is checked. Okay, so oxygen supply on, passenger oxygen off. Microphone selector, that's located down here, is in normal. So, starter off, ignition off. Landing gear control down, radio master, if the clearance is required. So that's a cool feature I want to show you. The battery is still turned off at the moment. Now, nonetheless, if we need an IFR clearance in order not to overload the battery, if you turn the radio master on, you will see that just the COM1, which in this case is attached to the GTN850, is going to switch on. And you can see that little ground clearance light illuminated down there. So that is your... that's basically just your COM1 that's turning on. So it enables you to get an IFR clearance and a startup clearance, for example, before you fire up the entire plane and drain the battery too quickly. Now today we are on the manufacturer's ramp, so we don't really need that, but I find this feature really cool, so let's turn that off again. Okay then, let's go ahead with the startup. Source selector on, horn test on. Then door annunciator extinguished. Again, we don't see any door light up here. So, fuel gauges. Quantity is looking good. Fuel selector, auto, auxiliary boost pump. Off for now. Engine instruments are checked, basically reading all off, and the ITT test we need to conduct because the ITT is really important gauge there on our engine start. Okay, so that's working normally. Cool, then let's go ahead with the engine start, and we're going to start the engine off the battery today. So manual override lever off, power lever idle, propeller lever max RPM, condition lever off. Okay, source select on the battery. Then aux boost pump on, and do notice those sounds and the behavior of the needle as I'm about to turn the pump on. Can hear it in operation, and you can especially see how the fuel pressure has been slowly building up when I turn the pump on. Okay, so fuel pressure is green, then let's go ahead with the startup. Ignition auto, starter on, and notice how the battery is discharging and the voltage is decreasing as our engine start commences. It's a PT6 engine, so you are familiar with that. 13% NG. We're going to introduce the fuel, which is pretty much now. Okay, now watch the ITT gauge. If it goes above a maximum, if it goes above 1,000, it must be for less than 5 seconds, and above 870 within 20 seconds. Otherwise, we need to shut the engine down again. Okay, 50% NG. Starter off. So oil pressure is looking good. Then we can go up to high idle. Okay, and that is our engine start basically completed. Auxiliary boost pump into auto. Then fuel pressure annunciator is extinguished. Main generator extinguished. Voltmeter is about 28 and the battery is slightly charging. And that's our engine start checklist complete. Then we can continue with the after start. Now in the after start, have a very close look at the gyro instruments as I'm about to turn on the gyro buttons. So let me zoom out a little bit and have a close look at your gyros as I'm about to turn them on. Now this is part of the gyro system simulation that you can see, and depending on the speed of rotation of the gyros, which normally only takes a couple seconds to run up, as you can see, the gyros will stabilize. Now, if the gyro is turned off, however, it can take between 10 and 20 minutes for the gyro to actually run down. And that becomes especially important in case of a failure of the gyro, because at first the instrument is going to look exactly normal, only until you initiate a maneuver where the instrument is going to go out of sync then. So that's something that is really something to be aware of. Okay, then let's go ahead and check our anti-icing. Prop de-ice, works. Left windshield heat, works. Right windshield heat, works. And then we can do the airframe de-ice. Now, on this we just observe the left system is working right now. We observe the, you can somewhat see the deflection of the de-icing boot up there. And then we check that the same thing happens on the right hand side, and that is looking good to me. Okay, so that thing is working. And now we are going to turn on the inertial separator. That takes between 20 and 30 seconds, and you will notice that delay up here on the light, but also you are going to notice that on the engine instruments. Basically, when the inertial separator is going on, the torque for a given ITT is going to reduce. In idle thrust you aren't going to see it very much, but I'll show you later on with a little bit more thrust set, and then you can really see that inertial separator. And I can tell you already that you will overboost your engines because of that at least once. Also do notice the slight movement of the vertical speed indicator here going up and down due to the airflow of the propeller going over the static port. Okay, cool, so let's go ahead then. The ampere meter is below plus 50, that would be the first line that you see up there. Generator selector standby. Battery voltage is still looking good, and the ammeter is still 0 or charging. It is actually slightly charging at the moment. So generator back to main. Then flaps up, bleed air, auto, air conditioning on, fan flow auto. And cabin temperature, yeah, this is set to roughly 22 degrees. 28 right now in here, so that's a little warm, but that is going to come down. Okay, perfect. So, cabin altitude, we'll just leave it as it is because we're not going to climb above 14,000 for the time. Okay, weather radar off or standby. It's an off actually. So, radio master on, autopilot trim master on, and EFIS master on. Then EFIS source is set to the left hand side up here, and with that we can test our electric trim. So that's up here. Notice the moving up, trim is moving, and down, trim is moving. Perfect. Now I'll put that just about into the green band up there for our departure. Okay, perfect. So, that is pretty much that part completed. Then let's quickly set up our GPS. And the same goes for that side up here. So, I am going to use the standard VATSIM frequencies on this one. So, 1228, 1215. like so. Squawk 7000, we can turn the transponder on already so that ATC knows that we are coming in a few moments. And then in the meantime, let's go ahead and do the setup for our flight. So for this one, LFBT, we are going to fly towards LFBR. And then back towards LFBT. But that's really just the first part that we're going to fly VFR, and then we'll go IFR later on to show you both. Alright, so that's pretty much that part of the setup done then. Let's quickly go for some charts. Here we go. And that's it. Alright, perfect. I'll put the weather radar as standby already, just to have the unit boot up. And as with all the black square aircraft, if we go into the nav page up here, it shows us the engine condition. And on lock, we can go ahead for all those failures. So over here, you can really see all the failures that you have available. You can see the average mean time between failures for depending on how severe they are and so on. Okay, so we are going to leave it on a real-time failure rate though, hopefully getting us out unharmed today. But if something happens, we have all the associated non-normal checklists available in our manual as well. Okay then. Note the master caution flashing and the master warning that happens anytime something comes on up here and needs to be resetted, regardless if the condition of the failure is still active or not. That's just how the system works. And to be fair, is totally fine for me as well. Okay then, QNH today is 1020. Let's quickly put that in, and I'm also going to set the altitude bug up there. We're looking for a flight altitude of 3,500. And that is pretty much our setup. Down here we want to select GPS as our navigational source, and the heading bug will align as soon as we're on the runway. Okay, perfect. So that is pretty much our system set up complete then, and we are ready to taxi. Latest winds 040 at 5, so we are going to use runway 02 for departure, so taxi is as briefed earlier on. Okay then, that looks all good to me. We are standing just down here. The factory area is a private apron, so it doesn't appear on the chart. Alright then. If you are ready to go, then so am I. So let's get our airplane moving. Okay, taxi light on. Do note, by the way, that we don't have a beacon light in here, so you can use the strobe light as a beacon, but that is actually not included in the checklists. However, we are going to use it today. Alright then, so with that we are ready to go. Park brake is released. Then let's get it taxiing. Now you will notice at first that it is a little bit of a challenge to get the airplane under proper control on the ground. Now, ground physics have been improved with this one already. So they're not just using standard MSFS physics there, but note how slowly I'm just adding a bit of power, because once a plane is moving, like now, brake checked, you will find that it is going to start taxiing rather quickly. So we want to be careful with that. Small word here on turboprop dynamics. Many of you will be familiar with the beta range and what a beta range is and how that works. Now, MSFS does not really allow a proper beta range simulation. So what they have done in here is that the idle position of your joystick somewhat simulates a bit of a beta range so that the airplane doesn't move along too quickly under those conditions. But that's something to keep in mind when you are operating the plane. So basically returning your joystick thrust lever to an idle position is going to give you a good zero thrust position from the beta range. That's just a little bit of theory in the background there. Okay then, as we make our turns, we are going to confirm the instrument's working, so watch the turn indicator, watch the instrument turning, going to the right, and then going to the left. By the way, you might be wondering why there are so many airliners parked up here, including even some Qantas A380s and Singapore A380s over there. During COVID, this airfield was used as storage for aircraft, and in the simulation they've actually simulated that. And of course nowadays it isn't that extreme anymore, but I still kinda like it, and for that reason I kept it that way in my simulator. Alright, off and on the way. I don't know, I can't taxi from the outside, I need to go to the inside. So we're crossing a beam Bravo up there, next up Charlie, and then Delta for the full length. We're going to go for the full length today. However, the plane at maximum takeoff weight needs approximately 1 kilometer of runway in order to be legal to take off. So about 1 kilometer to a 50-foot altitude. You will see that in action very shortly as we're about to depart, but I just thought I'd throw that in over here. Now, luckily, Black Square have improved even in terms of their manuals. With that I mean that they have actually brought in some performance tables, including those tables for the takeoff where you get that kind of information from. So they're all included in the manual, and I can really recommend you to check them out, because there is a lot of good information in them. Also included, by the way, are tables for the climb, cruise and descent, and they do include the maximum speed cruise, normal cruise, and finally the long-range cruise as well, which is worth noting in this airplane, because long-range cruise is a lot slower than the normal speeds. Also quite nice up here. When we're taxiing a small airplane like this next to those A330s, you really get to see how big those A330s actually are. One of my first impressions when I stood in front of the real deal for the first time was just, whoa, this is an airplane, compared to the 737 previously. But that's just a little anecdote I thought I'd throw in. Overall, let's go back and focus on the TBM, because that is our object of interest for the time. Let's get rid of that. I know that I still have a new version available. Still need to update my GTN, but it always takes a little bit of a while, and I thought, well, never change a running system, and this one is running quite well. Okay, so we're about to reach the runway and to read the before takeoff checklist. Now, in the before takeoff checklist, there is one difference that I found between the manual from the aircraft manufacturer that I downloaded from their website and the included manual from Black Square, and that is the run-up. Now, this is a turbine-powered airplane, so you don't really need to do like a real run-up. The only thing you need to check is the governor of the propeller. However, the difference is Black Square wants us to check it at the holding point, while the plane's manufacturer wants to check it on the runway when you set your takeoff power. So for that reason, I am going to follow the Black Square manual on this one, but if you see people doing it different, if you see real-world videos, and there is a great channel for the TBM850 available, a great YouTube channel with a very dedicated pilot of the real deal, you might see differences in operation there. Anyway, we are strictly going to follow the Black Square manual over here, so let's go ahead with the before takeoff checklist. Parking brake set, parking brake light illuminated, terrain test. Alright, the torque is good. Then, power lever 1900 RPM. And that is really not too much of power, but you need to give it time. It is a turboprop engine, so the thing does take quite a while to actually run up. As you can see, my power lever is unchanged. This is same position. Alright, here we go. 1700. Now let's take just a tiny bit more. Looking for 1900. Of course, once you're a little bit more used to the plane and you develop that muscle memory, finding that 1900 position is going to be easy. But at first, it does take a little while to get it up there. Okay, cool. So we've got 1900 RPMs. Then let's do the governor test. That button is located just down here. And when it's pressed, you can see the RPMs dropping by at least 50. It has to drop within 50 and 250. And when we release the button, then they go back up to 1900. And you can see that's exactly what it's doing. Okay then. Power lever flight idle. Fuel imbalance monitor. So we've been using a tiny bit from the left-hand tank. But that is still totally fine. Okay then. Fuel boost selector auto. Auxiliary boost pump auto. Then let's quickly select or test the shift function. So you can see right now it's on the right-hand tank. If we click shift, it's automatically shifted to the left-hand tank. Both are fine for our departure, so I'm going to keep it on the left. Okay then, flaps, takeoff, pitot heat, on. So, de-icing systems as required off. Inertial separator, we'll turn it off for now. I'll show you in flight how that thing is going to work. Then advisory panel, all off except the brake and inert sep as required. So we just turned the inertial separator off. For that reason we have only the brakes. Then flight instruments, they are looking good as they are. So we're checking the attitude, we're checking the turn coordinator, we're checking the altimeter and the heading. Okay, flight control track. Full up, full down, neutral, full left, full right, neutral, and the brakes, full left, full right, the rudder obviously I meant, and neutral. Okay, so the ammeter is below plus 50, otherwise we might be seeing a failure in the electrical system there. And then we can go ahead, park and brake off. Let's turn on all those lights, and we'll turn on the pulse lights as well. Interesting that you can see the lights actually pulsing up here on the light panel. Kind of cool feature, isn't it? Alright then, and with that we are good to go. Alright then, line up. And you know an airplane is good when you take almost 45 minutes in the video just to get to the lineup position. Others will probably have completed the entire flight in that time, but I really feel there is just so much to say about this lovely airplane. Okay, so clear right side, clear left side. Okay, so that is looking all good. So takeoff is going to go pretty quickly, but let's go for it. Head and buck is synchronized. That's the first point that we are looking for to navigate to, and then I'd say takeoff. So looking for a torque of 100. And you will notice that the governor is automatically going to limit it, or rather the torque limiter. But nonetheless, you still want your power lever to be in that position. Okay, thrust set. Or power set, I should say. 85, rotate. Looking for a pitch of 7.5. Positive climb, apply the brakes, gear up. Above 115, flaps up. Looking for 130 for our initial climb speed. That is looking good. Okay then, yaw damper on. Taxi light off and 850 mode on. And with the 850 mode on, we can now increase our torque to 121, giving us that little boost in the climb. Alright, cool. Then let's turn out to the right. We'll opt to go over the forest up there, so I'm not going to make it a significant turn. $1,000 to go. Checked. You can see I'm reducing my rate of climb already. I'll also take a little bit of the power off. Just wanted to show you the 850 mode in action, but we don't really need it on what we are going to do today. So let's head over to the reporting point. Okay, 3,500. Here we go. And that's it. Okay then, so going to move out over here, and then we make that slight left-hand turn, and that is basically what we've seen on the chart as well. Thereafter it's going to be a 072 heading for 50 nautical miles, and you will be surprised how quickly those 50 nautical miles are going to go by. Alright, let's make that left turn. The area is clear. Nice, by the way, how you can really see how that departure routing is leading us just outside of those villages and the city in the back there. Okay, let's not climb away. As the airplane accelerates, you can really feel the changes in the aerodynamics. Now the flight model for the climb, or for takeoff, climb and cruise, is within 2% of the manufacturer's data. That is quite cool. Only for the descent it is a little bit off. I'm saying a little bit though, because I can fly the numbers that they want me to fly without too much of a problem, but it is a little bit off just because of that logic of the Microsoft Flight Simulator flight engine. Okay, passing a reporting point, and we are out. So, I do have a feeling that bridge over here is the actual reporting point. Perfect. Then let's just update the direct once more. Here we go. 49 miles or 11 minutes. So, let's use those 49 miles to explore a couple of the features of the aircraft. I told you earlier that I'm going to show you the inertial separator in action. Now, in order to do that, let's quickly bring in the flight director. Let's go nav, and let's go Alt, perfect, autopilot on. Here we go. Okay, so you can see I've set my torque to somewhere about 85 or so. Quickly going into the manual, our normal cruise power around sea level would be a torque of 121. So let's go up to 121. You can see flap lever is in the 850 mode. So let's increase that, and we are looking for 121, which is basically a red line. We just got to be quite careful here with our power lever, because we can easily overtorque the plane. Okay, here we go, 120, that shall be sufficient. And you can see how much power we have. We're doing 230 knots right now, which is just lovely. And even accelerating further, according to the manual, we are looking at an indicated airspeed of approximately 240 knots, a little bit less. We have to interpolate here. Normal cruise power table for sea level says 241, for level 100 229, so something about 230 and a bit. So 236, like we have right now, is actually quite spot on for the manual and what we're expecting to have. Okay then, nonetheless, let's reduce power once more, because in order to operate the inertial separator we need to be under 200 knots. Let's bring the power back, maybe to a torque of 50. Like so, and now our speed is coming back. You might be wondering, by the way, why I didn't pull the propeller RPMs back. Interestingly enough, even in the real-world flight manual, all the figures are given for RPMs of 2000. So you're just supposed to keep the RPMs up there. There is no information in the manual, or in the real-life manual, for lesser RPM settings. So for that reason I am simply going to fly it like this. Okay then, let's increase torque again. Let's go for 70 or something the likes. Just looking for something for the speed to stay somewhere around 190 or so. So yeah, this does look good. So remember that torque setting that we have here. About 60. Now I'm going to turn on the inertial separator. First of all, you can hear a slight change in the sounds, but now look at the engine torque as the inertial separator extends. Basically what happens is that you've got this little flap that is driving into the airflow, and that little flap therefore reduces the amount of airflow available, and for that reason you lose a little bit of power when the inertial separator comes on. Now you might be saying, okay, so surely that isn't that much of a problem. And you're right about that. But the thing where it gets you into trouble is when you took off with the inertial separator on, and then you go up to full power, 121.4, and then you turn the inertial separator off, because obviously what's going to happen is this. Let's turn it off again. And as we turn it off, the engine is getting more air once again, and you can see how the torque is increasing. And that makes it pretty easy to over-torque the engine after takeoff, and that's why I said earlier on, like, hey, you are going to over-torque your engines anyway, at some point. And this is exactly how you'll do it. Inadvertently, but it'll happen, believe me. It will happen. Okay then, so that is that. As our speed is low at the moment anyway, I do want to go ahead with a little bit of flight testing. So, the maneuvering speed in this airplane is, don't let me lie to you, 158 knots. So let's get it down to about 150 knots. You can, by the way, see how much power I have to pull off in order to get my speed down low. This one is really made for, well, it is really made for high-speed flight. And indeed it is the fastest turboprop that is out there. Okay, look at that. Torque is at like 35, we're still doing like 175 knots. So let's go really low with the torque. I want to get below the maneuvering speed. Okay, that's better. Looking for 150, just to be sure to have a little bit of margin there. That's good. Okay, so let's disconnect the autopilot once again and have a little bit of fun and see what we can do. So, notice the following. The first press disconnects the autopilot. The second press removes the flight director from view. Alright then. So, let's start with a couple of steep turns, left and right. I'm going to start with a steep turn left. Let's leave the power where it is, see how things are going to perform. Let's go 60 degrees of bank. And maintaining altitude like that is 2G. You can feel how that airplane doesn't like to be flown like this, but it has to be able to take it. But notice how our speed is dropping down. Okay, let's do the same into the other direction, maintaining 3,500. Here we go. And that's our high-speed stall. So I've got to unload a little bit, relax the control column a bit. We don't want to climb anyway. Okay, and we are reaching our target heading, so let's get out of the turn. The next thing I want to show to you is some of the dynamic needle simulation that they've put into this plane. And for that I'm going to put it into a slip, so let's reduce speed a little bit further. I want to go back to really into the wide arc, because I don't want to subject the airplane to too strong forces. So, speed coming back nicely. Trimming it out. Okay, that's looking good. So now I'm going to turn the yaw damper off, otherwise that is probably not going to work the way it should. Okay, and now I'll put it into a side slip, and I want you to have a look at the speed indicator. Alright, so look at that. You can see how you're very quickly losing some of that indicated speed. However, if we go out of the slip again, you'll see that the speed is coming up again. The reason this happens is because you are positioning the pitot probe into an angle to the free airflow, and therefore you create a little bit of a suction moment at the inlet of the pitot, even though I should say suction moment just compared to the normal flow of air that you have, and that is going to significantly affect your airspeed indication. Now, if you do this in landing configuration, you can lose as much as 20 knots indicated, but you don't have to worry about it. Your airplane is still going to fly normally. Okay then, let's speed up once again. I'm going to give it full power here. 121.4. And just watch that incredible acceleration that we're getting from the airplane. Overall, the flight model seems pretty nice to me. Now, the airplane does need to be actively flown. So you can see, for example, that I am constantly applying a little bit of left aileron over here. In order to stabilize it, you can see that I need to apply a little bit of elevator all the time in order to keep my flight path and to trim it out. So here we go, 121. That should give us our 235 knots back. Pretty much the way it is doing now. Okay, so that much for this part. Then let's have a quick look into the Navigraph charts, because in 4 minutes we are already going to reach our destination, which is Muret. So, at Muret we're going to fly for runway 30, so it is going to be a left-hand pattern, and there is no pattern altitude published, but the field elevation, if we quickly go onto this, give me my airport info please. Field elevation is 620 feet, so let's go for 1,600 as our pattern altitude. Here we go, that's 1,600 selected. And that is basically it. Okay, cool. So, 3 more minutes until we arrive, and then we are going to do a couple of touch and goes to give you an idea of how the airplane handles on takeoff and landing, before we are going to fly back and prepare for our IFR flight. We're going to show you a couple of the IFR capabilities of the TBM850. In the meantime, let's see, the pulse lights are still on, and we're going to leave them on below the transition altitude. That is what the manual is asking of us. Now, in case you're wondering why the airplane has this pretty strong rolling moment, like you can see if I'm letting go of the control column, I put it neutral, the plane is rolling quite strongly. That's because of that huge power from the propeller, which induces that rolling moment. Okay, 2 minutes to run. Let's go into the descent. 1,000 feet a minute should be fine. And I'm taking back the power already slightly, because we really don't want to run into the traffic pattern at 250 knots, do we? So let's take the power out. fly 1,000 feet a minute, and I'm slightly deviating to the right of the route so that we get to join the traffic pattern on the downwind and not right over the field. Again, you can see quite a lot of trimming I need to do here in order to keep my airplane steady where I want it to go, but once it is trimmed, as you can see, it feels really neat. Also nice to notice, once again, I'm letting go of my control column, and you can see that the turn rate to the right is quite a bit less now than with our full torque that we've been using beforehand. Okay, so now comes the challenge of trying to make out that field. Should be just off to the left 6 miles, so somewhere over there I suppose. Maybe that little building over there might be an airport building. But we'll have to see about it. There is no downwind pattern published, so I'm simply going to take it right as it is. Let's quickly set that airfield elevation bug to 620. Here we go. So, if you see the field, then do scream please. Might be over there. That might be it indeed, but let's get a little closer to have a better look. Okay, we reached 1,600, very good. Let's trim it out to maintain that. Still can't see the field. It has to be over here. Okay, we're now a mile and a bit off, so let's turn downwind and... Oh yeah, here it is. That's it for sure. Perfect. Okay, so... out of the 850 mode and... gear down. So that's our field down there. Okay, then let's start our base turn. Power idle. So, taxi light is on, light still pulsating, and everything else is fully forward. Very good. Then, landing flaps. Quick check, inertial separator is off, okay. Alright, let's not overfly the village. Again, quite some requirement to trim the plane, but that is expected with that huge engine when I'm changing power. Okay, there's our runway. It's 1,000 meters long, so that should be sufficient to do touch and go on there. Then let's turn final. Yaw damper is off, perfect. Okay, 80 knots is our approach speed. At light weights, 85 at heavier weights. So that is looking good. Power off. And we're down. Okay then. Set takeoff thrust, flaps takeoff. So torque set, rotate. Pitch 7.5 is a good initial climb. Tap the brakes, gear up. So for the pattern we are going to maintain 110 knots. Again, at slow speeds you're looking for something about 110. At heavier weights you're looking for about 115. I pull a bit of power and let's turn downwind. 130 should be nice speed for the Patron. And that's it. And do get me rid of that flight director, please. Thank you. I wonder why those modes are staying engaged here. That's better. Okay, visibility unfortunately isn't that good from the TBM cockpit. But then again, it's not an airplane that you would fly too many traffic patterns with. Okay, downwind. Now some of you might be saying something along the lines of, why are you overspeeding your flaps? The answer is, the wide arc is only for full flaps, but we've only got flaps in the takeoff position right now, where the maximum speed is 176. That is not marked on the speed indicator. That's, by the way, how it works in most GA aircraft. Okay, downwind, gear down. This time we'll cut the traffic pattern a little tighter in order to avoid overflying this one up here. Okay, reduce power. And here we go, base turn. I believe the pattern probably goes through here over those fields, if you were to fly it entirely correctly. Okay, landing flaps. Okay, where's our field? There it is. So, 80 knots is good. Our altitude seems good to me as well. Perfect. So, gear down, flaps down, landing checklist complete. Let's start that final turn. A little bit of power. And here we are, looking excellent. Going into the puppy. A little bit more power, maintain those 80 knots. Perfect. Okay, power idle. Let's try not to float too far this time. Perfect. Okay, bit of power, maintain center line. Thrust on, take off. Power set, rotate. Again, pitch 7.5, tap the brakes, positive climb, gear up. Looking for speed of 110. We're going to do one more traffic pattern, so that we've got our 3 takeoff and landings on the airplane. And then we're going to return to the manufacturing airport for our IFR pickup towards Biarritz. Okay, oops, let's not overshoot. This thing got a lot of power, so that slight overshoot that just happened, well, I do apologize. Ultimately I didn't hurt anybody, but nonetheless it's still nice to fly correctly in the sim, isn't it? Okay, can't see a lot outside unfortunately in this one, but we've still got the heading buck down there, that is going to help us. Alright, and here we are. Okay, on the downwind again. So, one more, and then we are going to return towards our departure airfield for the IFR. Overall, my feeling of the landings in this airplane is that if you are on speed, which is very important, if you're on speed, then it lands pretty nicely. You just got to learn the moment where you pull off the thrust. Okay, gear down. Landing flaps. Okay, let's try to make that turn on the right spot this time. This is looking good. So let's get the power off, start our descent. Okay, that is looking quite good. Checked. Okay, starting the final turn. So, gear down, flaps down, landing checklist complete. Coming in a bit higher this time. But that looks alright. Okay, right onto the puppy. Thrust idle, we are rather slow already. And we're down. Okay, so one more time, set takeoff power. Rotate. Okay, tap the brakes. Positive climb, gear up. Okay, flaps up. Looking for a speed of 130. And then we've got the yaw damper on and the taxi light off. 130 looking good, and we are going up to 3,500 once again. 850 mode is on. Then setting 121 torque, like so. And you can see the lovely rate of climb this airplane is giving us. About 2,700 at a light weight is what you'll find in the manual. And you'll find that when you're at constant speed, then you're pretty much getting that from the black square as well. Okay, 300 to go, time to take down the nose. So let's go long range cruise this time, because I need a little bit of time to prepare the IFR part of our flight. So, at first, let's see, heading. Heading out autopilot, looks good. Then let's quickly update that direct. Nav. And that looks good. So, looking into the manual. Trying to find the table right now. Okay, so long-range cruise. Well, the lowest altitude we have for that in our manual is 24,000 feet, and over there they're looking at a torque of 55. So that is roughly what we've got now. And with that, at optimum flight level, which is 310, you're going to get approximately 1,500 nautical miles range out of the airplane. So just to give you an idea of what the TBM is capable of. You'll also see that in action when you look at the fuel gauges. Now you will notice right now the right fuel tank has less quantity than the left fuel tank. Now, if you have a look down here, you'll see that we're running off the left tank at the moment. Now the reason why this split occurs is that we've got the fuel select in auto up here, and it basically switches the fuel tank selector between left and right automatically all the time in order to not create too much of a difference, since the airplane is unable to draw fuel from both tanks at the same time. But you can see this happens automatically, and now we've got a little bit of an imbalance with the left side being a bit heavier, and now it's drawing off the fuel from the left tank automatically, and then when the left side is lower it's going to switch back to the right side, and so on and so forth. So that is pretty much how that airplane is automatically managing the fuel, so you don't need to worry about it too much. Obviously when you leave this off accidentally, and I do agree that it is quite hard to see the switch position over here, when you leave this off, then you are responsible for setting your fuel tank selector correctly. So it is quite a good idea during pre-flight to make absolutely sure that the knob is up in the auto position and to monitor your fuel gauges, because obviously this is a black square aircraft after all, so all your computers, everything can fail. Let's see if we've actually got a circuit breaker down here. Yeah, see that? We've got the fuel selector, circuit breaker, so if that one pops or if you accidentally pull it, that is not going to work anymore. Quite cool what those black square aircraft can do, isn't it? Okay then, in the meantime though, let's go ahead and run a little bit of preparation for the IFR flight that we're about to do. I'm going to go into heading mode here, because I'm going to cheat a little bit. Direct LF BT. Enter activate. Thank you, that's what I'm looking for. And now we can navigate on that. But do note, the plane is not able to give you GPS number 2. You can only navigate on GPS number 1 here. I'm not sure if it would make a difference if you went to EFIS HRS on the right side. Maybe it would, but to be totally fair, I don't even want to try out. I'm totally happy with it the way it is right now. Okay then, so let's have a quick look into our flight plan for the upcoming IFR sector. Unload, and that is what we're looking for. Okay, so now let's go into the GTN menu, delete, yes. So we want to depart from LFBT and then via load procedures, departure, LMB, what do we have? One mic, yep, that looks like what we want to have, of runway 02. And then from Lemberger we are going to follow Airway Golf 17 towards Sovos. Load that up. And then LFBZ Biarritz is going to be our destination airport. I've flown to Biarritz a couple times in real life, and I can tell you it is an absolutely beautiful airport. And a beautiful approach as well. Now, if only I had a current database, then I would have the star that we filed as well. Let's have a very quick look over here. Sobos 1 Romeo. Of what time is that procedure? November 22. Yeah, my IRAC is a little bit older than that, so I might not have it in here. No, I don't. Okay. But that is fine. Let's have a very quick look at that chart, because I do believe we have an arrival from BDuck, maybe. Yeah, we do. BDuck 9 Romeo, so that's probably gonna be it. Let's see if that one still exists. Probably doesn't. No, it doesn't. So they just moved it along from Sovos towards BDuck, and the rest, let's see, 503, 505, 507. Yeah, that's still all the same. Oh, and this one has a transition from Sovos. Okay, so that's how they did it previously. That's totally fine for me. We can take that. Let's see if we've got the correct RMP approach for runway 09 though. That might be a good thing for us to check. Look at that, it even got the altitude restriction at Sobos here correct. So, it is really the procedure that we've been looking for. Okay then, for the approach. No, not at LFBT, thank you. But rather at LFBZ. That's what we're looking for. Okay, that looks good. So, ANA 09 with an LPV minima. And we'll take the transition from the south up there. That's going to be Bravo Zulu 507. Okay. Load that in. So, let's have a very quick look into what we have now. Menu, preview. That is what I've been looking for. Okay, so that is looking good. That's Golf 17, Sovos, BDAC, approach, and final. Very nice, that is what I've been looking for. So let's quickly go over our SID then, making sure that all the waypoints are correct. So, from the runway we've got Bravo Tango 202, above 2,500 feet, max 205 knots, that's not going to be a problem, 130 is our climb speed, and then we continue towards Lembaye, which we have in here as well. Okay, going to switch that active on the radio as well, and with that our flight is prepared. So we are going to come in for a visual pattern, do a touch and go. On the touch and go we are going to activate the route on our GPS, and then we've got GPS guidance available for our flight. So that's pretty much my plan. Okay, so thank you very much for those charts, Navigraph. Then let's keep going on here. You know what, I might just about update that direct here. Activate once more, and then we can go back in a nav mode as well. Or if we want to make our life, like, really easy, then we could even do this. Waypoint, LFBT Echo, direct to, activate, and now we're going direct to the VFR reporting point that we need to go to anyway. So, that's a little bit of tricks in the GTN, not necessarily related to the TBM, but nonetheless I do find those quite handy to have. Alright, so what we have to keep in mind now, as we're about to do our touch and go and the IFR part, we're going to climb to 15,000 feet. That means we need to pressurize the plane. And pressurizing the plane, in our case, means that we are going to select an altitude 1,000 above the altitude for the touch and go that we... above the new cruising altitude, so that's to be taken into account. Now let's quickly find out the field elevation. And we have that, I believe, here. Do we? Should be available somewhere in here, but oh yeah, here it is. 1260. Perfect. So let's go ahead and pre-select that. Now, as you can see, that is already 1000 above cruise level, so that is going to be just fine for the cabin pressurization system. Perfect. So that's all we can ask for, is it? And with that, we are pretty much set up for that flight and that approach. So let's get us down low already to 1000 above the field elevation. Vertical speed minus 1000. And then let's see if we can make out the airport already. Even though we are going to come in exactly the way we came out previously, so we are going to go over that little highway bridge, and then over to the other reporting point, and then into the right-hand downwind for runway 02 for our touch and go to pick up the IFR. We have to remember that on the touch and go we need to go into the flight plan and activate our route. Otherwise we are going to run into a bit of trouble flying that SID. So all of that needs to be done on the runway, and all of that needs to be done pretty quick. So my apologies already if I'm going to do these things without commenting too much on what I'm actually doing there. There's just not too much time available. Going to level off in 400 feet. Capture mode is armed. Here we go. Alt. Just while I notice it, it might as well help to set the standby altimeter. Okay. So I do believe we are flying for quite a while already, but let's have a very quick look into how long we're actually flying. There's two ways we can do that. We could do it via the engine trend monitor, but I'm going to go into into a bit more details about that later on the IFR part. So let's simply use the transponder. Here we go, flight time 51 minutes. It surely didn't feel that long. I really have to say it did not feel like we are flying for 50 minutes already. Let's go 2600, please. Okay, now it's capturing, and let's see that it maintains that. Because I noticed earlier on the flight that the autopilot seems to not maintain the altitude precisely. It seemed to go up and down a little bit by like 100 feet or so. Now, on all the previous test flights I've done, and I've flown this thing for like 5 hours now, on all the previous test flights I've done, it maintained the altitude perfectly. That's what pointed me to the altimeter on the right side as well, as I thought like, well, could there possibly be anything wrong with our altimeter setting, which is confusing the autopilot? Maybe. Okay then, going to overfly Echo in a moment. Let's see if we can see that bridge. Not really, but then again, forward visibility in the TBM850 isn't that good, so I do suppose we are running just about fine. Okay then, let's turn right a little bit, like 10 degrees, heading. Let's go to Echo Alpha, nav. And yes, I am making my VFR navigation easy here with the GTN, just because, you know, why not? We have it available, so we might as well use it. Some say like, nah, that's not real navigation that you're doing and stuff like that. I tell you honestly, in real life that's exactly how you fly, because you want to minimize the possible disruptions that you can fall victim to. Now after that we'll go downwind. And you can see I'm creating my own waypoint down there, just by placing that cross. And when I then click direct, it's going to fly me directly to that point. So I've just prepared that. It removes some of the navigation information, like the time and everything, to get to that waypoint from the display, but look at that. We've got that all on the EHSI. So that's 1.3 miles, 190 knots, and we're going to be there in less than a minute. And look at that. Now the altitude is actually being maintained correctly. So it probably was the QN8 that confused it. Okay, arriving at waypoint, so let's take the new one. Activate. 3 miles to run. The airfield is just out there. Perfect for us to see. Down there are the hangars. Okay then, let's start reducing our speed. Cabin altitude is looking good. That's just above 1,000. So at field elevation. Okay, heading. You know what, let's take the autopilot off. Flight director off as well. And then we're going to start our approach. So down there is the runway, we're in a right-hand downwind here. Well, somewhat of a right-hand downwind. But we're staying clear of the village, and that is what I wanted. So, Patron altitude, 1,000 above the field. Flaps approach. Okay, gear down. And let's make it a proper downwind for a second. Then we can take off the power. That's the landing gear warning horn, by the way. That gear is on the way. Here it is. Okay then, and turning base. You will notice that I'm keeping my yaw damper on pretty much until we're established on the final, just because in Microsoft Flight Simulator I don't like the rudder controls in general. Like in X-Plane that's a lot better, and in real life it's even better. So for that reason I'm just keeping the yaw damper so that I don't have to do all the manual fiddling with the landing gear. Sorry, with the rudders when I'm going into turns. Okay then, here we go. Coming in a little bit high, let's get it down onto the puppies. Then we can dial in our first IFR altitude, which is going to be 5,000. Okay, activate the GPS lag. Perfect. Tracked. Okay, and with that we are good to go. So we're on the puppy. Let's maintain those 80 knots. 3 reds, correcting. Okay, activate lag once more. That's it. Right then, that runway is a little bit wider than the previous, so it might seem easy to flare too early. Okay, thrust off. Touchdown. Perfect. Okay, so flight plan is active. So is the heading bug. And the flaps are looking good. Set takeoff thrust. Rotate. Positive climb. Brakes. Gear up. (110), flaps up. Yaw damper on, taxi light off. (130), nav, speed, autopilot. Okay, then give me the boost. 850 mode. And increasing power. So here we go. Torque 120. Very nice. And now we are IFR. So let's go squawk 4510. Just a random one, really. And I am going to start the timer on that clock over here as well. Because now we can time our IFR flight as well, since our standard transponder flight time is going to be, well... Okay, let's climb flight level 150. That is where I want to go to for this little flight. Alright. Set standard. Standard cross-check, passing flight level 52. Now. Yeah, checked. A little bit off that standby altimeter, but that is normal. This one has an air data computer attached to it. This one doesn't, as far as I'm aware. Oh, let's see real quick. What's the altitude limit on this one? Yeah, 25. So you can see that one doesn't have an air data computer to it. While the primary one does, as this is calibrated for 60,000 feet. Okay, we're above the transition, so the pulse lights can go out. And that's really all there is to it. Now we are IFR. And this could have been exactly the same if we just departed, you know, if we just departed normally without doing all the fancy VFR and touch and go stuff beforehand. So this is, let's call it, what most of you are going to fly this plane like. And I have to say, I do appreciate that autopilot panel up here. It does make things easy. Now, something for you to have an eye on is that torque. As you're climbing, your torque is increasing, so you occasionally need to pull the torque back a little bit. Right now, if you look carefully at the needle, you can see it is just above 120. Now, 121 is legal, but I rather take it back down to 120 because I just want to be absolutely sure that I'm not over-torquing that engine, because you can damage it. And that is the important thing here. Let's quickly do the checks at level 100. So lights are going off. We have cabin pressure building. The differential pressure here is the important thing, the PSIs. And you can literally watch that needle increase there as we are climbing with a constant cabin altitude. If you have a very close look at the PSI needle, slowly but steadily increasing as we are climbing up higher. And if you look at the torque again, you will see it has once again increased, so let's put that back to 120. So that's about the kind of things that you need to do in this airplane as you are climbing out. Let's take a quick shortcut here. Let's go towards the star entry, direct Sobos. Activate. And here we go. So, flying IFR, you might be thinking about that EHSI down here and what that can and cannot do. Now, I'm going to tell you in a moment. In the meantime, we're approaching our target altitude. So, vertical speed, 2000. Torque, about 120, that's alright. Now we're approaching 1 to go. Vertical speed 1000. 1000 ago. Checked. Okay, so let's talk about the EHSI, because that is an interesting instrument with an even more interesting story to it. So what I'm about to tell you is taken straight from the manual. Now, you can see that right now we're flying this thing in GPS mode and in the arc mode, so, in the ROSE mode, so basically we get the full thing. We've got a wind display up here, we got a display with our information about the next waypoint, our heading bug, and so on. We can also switch on VOR displays over here and fancy stuff like that. However, what we cannot do at the moment is to change the HSI mode. So that does not work yet. Also, we can't put it into arc mode. Now you might be saying, oh, so this isn't fully simulated. No, it is fully simulated. Let me quote to you from the manual. But before I do that, let's quickly level off at flight level 150. We're going to go for normal cruise power, which is 121 torque, resulting in a true airspeed of approximately 280 knots and indicated about just above 220. So torque is about here, that's fine. Propeller stays at maximum, NG is good, temperature is good, oil pressure good. And a quick look at the fuel gauge is looking good as well. Okay, perfect. So, let me tell you the story behind the HSI down there. So, the EFS40 EHSI can be purchased with an optional symbol generator unit, in real life that is, which is a line replaceable unit avionics component mounted remotely in the aircraft. This piece of equipment augments the existing features of the EHSI with rudimentary map rendering capabilities for improved situational awareness. Included with this upgrade is a compass arc display mode and overlay weather radar imagery. These modes are controlled with the HSI arc and zoom in-out buttons on the bedsel. The symbol generator functionality of the EFS40 is not currently simulated in this aircraft, but may be at a future date. See the regular news section on the Just Flight website for future updates. So, major software updates since the EFS40 system was released in 1990 have changed the appearance of many aspects of the displays. Keep that in mind when you reference material for this unit, which may not be a perfect match for the software version represented. So that's just something to keep in mind for this thing back there. Also something to note right now, if you look at the VOR2 display, you see the needle moving slightly up and down. Now that is also a feature of the Black Square aircraft, which features signal attenuation and signal degradation from the unit. So as you can see, right now, there is something that it's receiving on here, but it's not good enough to give us any, plausible indication. Did I ever mention I really love the system depth of those Black Square aircraft? If I never said that, I did so now. Okay then, let's go ahead and have a look into our descent planning for the arrival into Biarritz. Going to make it easier. Sobos, below level 100, top of descent in 1 minute and 30 already. Okay. So we'll do that. You can see I've custom configured my GTN down there to have the vertical speed required showing here, right on the main display, which makes my life a little bit easier. Also, very quick check on our airplane's performance. I told you earlier that we should have just above 120 knots. Now, the tables that I have are for flight level 100 and flight level 200. And at level 100 we should get 229 knots, while at level 200 we should get 217. So getting something in the middle here like 225, I would say we're actually spot on with the performance. This is exactly what things should look like. Now, a last thing before we start our descent that I want to show you, that is the engine trend monitor that we have down here. And this one, you can see, got several different pages. Right now we're on the ETM page, engine trend monitor, and in here, if we use the different buttons, we can see different information. We can see our shaft horsepower, specific fuel consumption, and so on. So that is like what we've got in here. Also, lovely over here, it tells us when the next inspection is due, so that is configurable from the engineers doing the inspection, and they normally start at 100 hours, so you're doing inspections at 100-hour intervals. You can see right now it says 93:57, so from that you can guess that my total flight time on this plane is roughly 6 hours right now. Then you can go down to the nav page. This one is working with GPS data, and it tells us the position. It tells us navigation data here, like to Sovas, 15.8 miles, 3 minutes. Then the ETA over Sovas, then to destination. Unfortunately, that one I found is not really working that well at the moment, but that may be related to the output from the GTN. So I haven't tried that with the GNS 530. Maybe that would produce a different result. Okay, then going down, once again, ETA at destination, then we've got our magnetic track, our ground speed, the magnetic variation in this area, we've got our wind and the drift, and the heading and the drift, and all of that stuff. Then going down to the fuel page, we've got our full fuel, then fuel to destination. Again, for that it would need to know the destination to show us something. Same goes for fuel at destination. We've got our specific range, which is currently 3.91 mile per gallon. Then we've got the fuel flow, 70 gallons per hour. Fuel used, fuel remaining, and this is obviously live updated from the plane. So you can see we've got like twice the flight range of flight that we've used to now. Time remaining, 155, and that's it. And finally we've got the air data down there, where you can see our current date and time. Then going down, got the flight timer. Interesting, 1 hour 61. That doesn't seem to make too much sense. Should be an hour and 10. Yeah. I don't know. This probably got confused there. I'm going to report that to the developer. Then we have temperature, density altitude, pressure altitude, and density altitude. And finally, that page here I like the most. That's our indicated airspeed, true airspeed, and Mach number. Now, the Mach number down here is the only source of Mach number that you're going to get. And remember, when you're flying in upper airspace, then you do need that Mach number for any speed restrictions that you might be getting from your controller. So that is the only place where you can get the Mach number in this plane. Finally, we've got the gross weight, and that is it. So I'm going to leave it right on here. Also, if you've exceeded any performance limits of your plane, you're going to get that exceedance information shown down here on the engine trend monitor. So that's a pretty cool thing to keep a good eye on how your airplane is performing. Alright, in the meantime we've missed our top of descent, but we'll just ignore that Sovos level 100 restriction, and we'll just go with something that makes a little bit more sense. So let's zoom out a bit, 30 miles to run plus going around, so 50 miles to run, something like that. Doing 270 knots ground speed. Our speed is going to increase a tiny bit as we start our speed is going to increase a bit as we start our descent, so you know what, we'll start the descent now. We'll give it 1,500 feet a minute, and that should be just about right. So vertical speed, give me 1,500, and down we go. Let's reduce our thrust as well. 230 is our target descent speed, and we've got a table for that in the manual as well, telling us that from 15,000 feet we need roughly 32 miles to descend at 2,000 feet a minute doing 230 knots. So that's just a little information that you get there from your airplane, telling you how it wants to be flown. Now we've got vertical speed required 1,690. Let's quickly see where that comes from. BDAC above 2.5. Okay. Oh, that's alright. We'll take that. We'll take the 1,690. That's good enough for us. So that's like 1.7 on here. Sounds good to me. So as we're about to start our descent into Biarritz, let's have a very quick look at the airport information. So elevation 245, so let's select the cabin altitude down, but let's take a smoother rate here as the cabin really doesn't need to descend too far. Something like 500 feet a minute should keep our ears happy. Then let's have a very quick look at the approach chart. RMP 09, that is what we're about to fly. Okay, so we have LNAV and VNAV available. We even have an LPV on this plane, so let's go with the LPV minima of 250. So let's go down to DH set, and then we can set 250 down there. And back to norm. Alright, perfect. So that is what we are looking for. Then continue the descent. Let's make it a 5,000 now. And with that set, let's switch to local QNH as well. And local QNH for us today is 1018. So set altimeter 1018. Set left. And 1018 set right. Perfect. Okay. QNH 1018 cross-check passing 10,900. Now. Checked. Perfect, and that's basically all we need in here. Now, I am going to tune Biarritz's VOR as well. We don't need it for the approach, but nonetheless, just for situational awareness, I find it kind of nice to have. So, and here we go. 15 miles out, that direction. Makes sense, that is pretty much what we're expecting as well. Looking outside, let's see if we can see it. Should be somewhere over here, I believe. Oh, over here. That might be it. I have to say, even though I did fly there a couple times in the real world, I mostly came from the north and then over the coast, and then you fly over the city on the final. Oh, down here it is. Yeah. So you fly over the city up there. That's looking really, really impressive. I do hope that Microsoft is going to do an adequate job on it, because then we are going to have a really impressive approach. Okay then, passing 100. Lights on, and I'm going to make them pulse straight away. And then we can go ahead and read that descent checklist, if we can find it. So, altimeter set local, cabin altitude is field elevation, pulse lights on, de-icing systems off, inertial separator off, airflow distributor is norm. Ignition off, fuel quantity and balance checked and looking good. And auto fuel selector shift to fullest, so that is the left tank right now. And this is on the right, so let's press shift. And here we go, now it's on the left. Okay, descent checklist complete. So vertical speed required is now 1,600. I really have to say this is a beautiful, beautiful airplane, isn't it? Like, if you just look at it like this, I do like the cockpit of this one better than the default working title enhanced TBM850. This one is just that, I don't know, it has charm to it, doesn't it? That's what I really like about this airplane. What I really like about it. The price is also very good. It is going to come at 35 euros. So 35 euros for something like this really is a steal. You can get similar aircraft for a similar price without that level of system fidelity. So can absolutely recommend you to check this one out. Okay, that's 1,000 to go. Then let's go down all the way 2,500, which is going to be from where we'll start the approach. And then we only need 900 feet a minute now. No auto throttle on here, but as you can see, it's so easy to maintain the speed. Just like any airplane that I've flown in real life, by the way. Maintaining speed really is easy going in real life. On this one is as well. On many flight simulator aircraft I feel it isn't going like completely right, but on this one it really is. Okay then, so that is pretty much my first view at the TBM850 from Black Square Simulation. Now I do hope that it is going to give us a lovely arrival. Down there we can see the field. We are just about on the downwind right now, and we're going to have this lovely approach over, first of all, the cliffs, and then over the city of Biarritz on our way in. So that is a really beautiful approach in real life, and I do absolutely hope that it is going to be the very same in the simulator as well. Okay then, as you can see, even though I went outside for a little, speed is still bang on where I want it to be. It's doing a really good job at that. The flight model, I really appreciate it. The autopilot's also doing a decent job, just as it should. It's not doing a perfect job. And that is a feature, not a bug. Because most general aviation autopilots are not perfect. They are doing a good job, but, you know, sometimes they just miss that little bit of extra to it. Okay then, we're approaching our base turn. Let's go ahead and reduce our thrust. So with the torque below 100 and our altitude still above 1500 AGL, we can take it out of the 850 mode. And you do that by taking the flap lever from 850 back to up. And that's how you get out of it. Alright, speed coming back nicely. Starting our base turn. Let's get the speed below 180. That is close to the limit for flaps 1, which is 176. If you do something like 160 knots on the approach, that should be rather decent. Nice to see, by the way, how as I have reduced the speed within the turn for the approach, the bank angle is gradually reducing as my speed is coming back, because, well, the GPS can't really make its mind up. And that's exactly how to confuse the GPS in real life as well. Really fun to do. Okay, cool, so let's go down to altitude 2000 feet. That is from where we are going to start our approach. Vertical speed required now 600 feet a minute. Let's do that in order to fly CDA. Speed 160 now, let's keep it at that. And starting the final turn. Okay, flaps, takeoff. I'll just get them out so that we have a little bit more drag available. But I'm keeping my speed at 160. That's just a bit of a flying technique there. Okay, and here we go. As you can see, as the GPS has shifted to the final approach mode, you can see that our EHSI has also switched into final approach mode. So we've got the landing guidance over here, and we've got the vertical guidance over there. So, approach mode is armed. Approach, vertical speed. The glide slope is coming alive. This is completely driven by the GTN now. Here we go. So this is how to fly an RNAV approach in an airplane like this. Okay, Alt. Just a quick level off there before we continue our descent. And that is less than 2.5 miles on a level flight. For that reason, it is a perfect continuous descent approach now. Okay, here we go. Intercepting the glide. Okay, 5 miles out. Gear down. Taxi light on. Before landing checklist. Cabin lights off, altimeters checked, decision height set, fuel quantity imbalance checked, inertial separator on. Propeller lever max, landing gear down, flaps approach, landing lights on, and we'll wait with the autopilot disconnect as I want to see how well the autopilot can fly this. Okay, landing flaps. So minimum speed for the approach with the autopilot engaged is 85 knots compared to 80 knots that we would do without the autopilot. But I just want to put the thing on, or keep it on, and see how well the airplane is going to perform. Okay, landing checklist complete. Okay, missed approach altitude 4,000. And might as well set the altitude back here to the minimum. So look at that. Isn't that a perfect approach? Really like it. I really like it. That's of course thanks to the GTN 750 as well, which is able to provide guidance like this. But look at that. Checked. Okay, autopilot off. Speed 80. Let's fly it down. Okay, minimum continue. Look at how nice it is to maintain that speed. I'm not touching the thrust at all. Okay, idle. And we're down. Okay, don't even need to brake over here. We'll just take the next exit to the left. Okay, a little bit of braking now. And off we go. Superb aircraft. That is so much fun to fly. I really can't wait till you guys have it in your hands as well. You are going to love this one. It is fast, it fits into small airfields. What else can you ask for? Okay, let's vacate that runway, and once we have vacated, we are going to run the after landing checklist. So that was 28 minutes of IFR. Gotta keep track of that for the logbook, obviously. And 127 total flight time, so 59 minutes VFR and 29 minutes IFR. Okay then, after landing checks. Anti-icing systems off, inertial separator on, bleed air off. Then weather radar off, flaps up, landing lights off, taxi light on, strobe light, I'm going to keep that on. Pulse systems can go off and oxygen supply off. That's the after landing checklist complete. Right, so for the parking we'll go all the way to the end, Apron Alpha. And that is going to be it then. Okay, and also we can go transponder on rather than alt. Even though that's not in the checklist, but that's how they want it to be done in Europe. Okay, let's turn all of those off. Officially, you should turn the yaw damper off before landing. I just forgot about that. Okay, here we go. I'll put my view up a bit, because otherwise I just can't see a thing. Okay, that parking might be a little tight with that citation, so let's take this one here. Okay, they are parking pretty much up front, then let's just go a little bit further front as well. Okay, I think this should be fine. We are within the assigned parking position, and without a marshaller that's probably the best we can get. Okay then, shutdown checklist. Parking brake set, parking brake annunciator illuminated, taxi light off, bleed air off, cabin differential pressure 0. Okay, fan flow, we can keep that on auto, air conditioning off, power lever has been in idle for a minute now, gyro instruments all off, and once again watch the gyros as I turn them off. As you can see, contrary to when you turned them on, you don't see any indications on the instruments, and that's what I meant earlier with that it can be so dangerous, because they take between 10 and 20 minutes to stop spinning, and the slower they spin, the more prone to incorrect indications your instruments are, and that is fully simulated here. That's really impressive, I have to say. Okay then, EFIS master off, autopilot and trim master off, radio master off, propeller lever, feather for 15 seconds. So that's feather. Can take a timing if you need to, but we can also just watch the engine run down there, which might be the easier option if I'm honest. Okay, that's 15 seconds. Then condition lever cut off. Like so. Aux boost pump off. Okay, auto fuel selector, manual, fuel tank, pull and off. Okay, the engine is about to stop. Then inertial separator off. It's impressive how long this is still rotating, isn't it? Like there is so much energy in, because that is a massive propeller. Okay, inertial separator off, exterior lights off, interior lights off, ignition off, generator off, source selector off, crash lever down, and that's the shutdown and securing checklist complete. So, welcome to Biarritz. I do surely hope that you have enjoyed our first little flight featuring the TBM850. Did I want to say 900 there? Okay, so first flight featuring the TBM850, and you can be absolutely sure there will be more. Now, I did go a little bit into the procedures already, but I am going to make a full tutorial on this one as well, as it is such a marvelous airplane. It really deserves to be flown correctly. And that is what we'll do. Alright then, so thank you very much for watching everyone. I do hope that you have enjoyed it. If you did, do let me know in the comments below. Let me know about how you like what you've seen, let me know how you like the TBM850, and finally let me know if you are looking for more by subscribing to the channel. Thank you very much, and I see you all again on the next one. In the meantime, if you really love what I'm doing, I would appreciate a small donation through the Buy Me Coffee link in the video description below. Thank you very much, and see you all again on the next one.